All right, here we go. Pizza Buffet is live for Week 12 in the NFL, presented by FanDuel. I am Rob Pizzola. I'm a pro bettor, and I'm the CEO here at the Hammer Betting Network. It is good to be back after missing my first Pizza Buffet in a very long time last week. Huge shout out to G-Stack George. He stepped in. He crushed it. Great job, G-Stack. I see you in the chat this morning, along with many other people, some familiar faces for sure. Before we dive into the slate, I want to take a couple minutes while people fill in here into the stream to talk about something a little bit random. I got a DM yesterday. Normally, I can ignore most of them. This one turned into a back and forth conversation about transparency on this show. So I just really quickly want to address that off the top before I get into the games. Anyone who knows me, you know that pick tracking is like paramount to everything I do. I am hyper obsessive about it. And yes, I track every single pick that I do give out on this show, all of them. I had someone say, oh, well, you throw out all these touchdown bets. Of course, you're eventually going to hit one. You're going to victory lap it. I mean, sure, high price markets work that way. But to give you the real numbers, I've given out 43 anytime touchdown scores this season. I've gone 14 and 29. If you flat bet every single one of them, the ROI is 98% on those. Like we've hit Jeremy Ruckert 19-1, Drew Sample 17-1. George gave out Colby Parkinson last week 8-1. Sean Tucker 6-1. Samaje Perine was 5-1. Bo Nix plus 450. Like the list goes on and on, right? This market is built around big prices. So of course you're going to take more losses than wins, but the wins more than cover the losses. Like the average price of touchdown scores I give out is plus 812 this year. Same thing with player props. I've given out 84 this season on this show with an 8.9% ROI if you're just flat staking. If you're a $100 bettor, you've risked about $9,500 over the course of the year. You've made roughly $850. Not life-changing money, but it's a very real profit. And the only reason I don't recap this stuff every single week is because, honestly, I suck at marketing myself. That's genuinely, I expect to win in these markets. I stay on after Pizza Buffet betting until game time every week because I think that there's some inefficiencies in the prop markets. So the lack of recaps is not hiding anything. It's just me focusing on this show. With that out of the way, let's get rolling. We'll hit every game, sides, totals, props, whatever still has value. I'll give you my numbers on everything. Always shop around. Make sure you check FanDuel, our presenting sponsors. They typically have the very strongest prices in market. And of course, you guys know the drill in the chat. Drop any breaking news or questions in the chat. I'll get to as many as I can. Really helps me over the course of the show, so I'm not distracted trying to keep up with news as it goes on. One quick reminder, as we go through sides and totals today, limits are very big on game day. Historically, when I've done this show on Sunday morning, my ROI on sides and totals has not been good. I'm not firing big limit sides or totals on Sunday unless I have like really strong conviction. And most weeks I don't. So just keep that in mind. I'm happy to give you my numbers and break games down. If you get something out of the way in how I analyze these matchups and you can fold that into your own process, for me, that's a win. My error metrics have been very good this year, somehow better than the pinnacle close. It's probably an anomaly, maybe not, but probably is. Either way, understand the difference between me talking through a game and me actually betting it at full limits. All right, enough of that. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's get into week 12. And we're going to start it off with the Steelers and the Bears. And this one had some significant movement and continues to move in market right now with the news that Aaron Rodgers is not going to play. Seeing a flat 3 at FanDuel at this moment in time. Total has come down a little bit on that news as well. This game's been moving around all week. Now with Aaron Rodgers ruled out, I kind of think there's been a bit of an overreaction. So we'll start with that. Rodgers being ruled out, obviously it matters, but like this is not a star quarterback to a backup quarterback drop-off, right? Pittsburgh's offense isn't built around Rodgers' high-end traits. They are a low ADOT, underneath routes, timing-driven unit. And because of that, the gap between Rodgers and Rudolph, I mean, it's smaller here than it would be for a lot of other teams. Rudolph is perfectly competent running this version of the offense. And importantly, Chicago had to spend its entire week prepping for both quarterbacks as well. So even though the quarterback decision is now settled, the Bears didn't get a clean prep week, not knowing who was going to play right up until day of the game. Where this matchup really starts to crystallize for me is on the defensive side. Pittsburgh gets Darius Slay back. That's a meaningful upgrade for a secondary that's been thin. Cameron Hayward didn't log full practices this week, but he should play. I mean, he's going to play. Even at 80%, Hayward matters a lot for how this defensive front operates. They don't have Alex Highsmith, but Slay's return does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of stabilizing coverage. And coverage is exactly where Chicago has a big problem. Both Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson are not activated off IR, so there's no surprise returns there, no help in the secondary. That leaves the Bears very vulnerable. The Steelers, they do a good job at scheming to get their wide receivers, tight ends, running backs open. They're top 8 in open percentage in the league. Chicago's defense is bottom 8 at preventing separation. So this is a clean mismatch in this game. Pittsburgh doesn't need explosives. They can find ways for their receivers to win underneath and between the numbers. And the Bears' linebacking issues, I mean, TJ Edwards is out again. Tremaine Edmonds is on IR. Noah Sewell is out. That's 3 linebackers missing against an offense that already targets short, intermediate windows relentlessly. So structurally, I think this is a nightmare defensive profile for Chicago. Now, Chicago's offense, they should still move the ball. Ben Johnson, top 10 unit in EPA per play, 6th in explosive rate. Pittsburgh blitzes a ton. They can give up some outside runs. They give up some throws over the middle of the field. So Chicago's going to have some drives. Offense isn't the reason to fade them. The reason is the defense. Too many missing corners, too many missing linebackers, no ability to stop what Pittsburgh does best, in my opinion. With Rodgers officially out and Bears money hitting the screen, I mean, my stance is this is Steelers 3 is probably good. I like to fade these overreactions. So at 3, I can't get there. I like the Steelers at those prices. Kind of a flip from where I was earlier this week, and understand that if you heard me say that I was interested in the Bears, I mean, there was an expectation that they might get a cornerback. We didn't know that all 3 linebackers would be out. So that's where I'm at now. From a prop perspective in this game, I like Colston Loveland over 24.5 receiving yards, which is minus 113 at FanDuel right now. That is the best price in market. I'd suggest you play it at FanDuel. 4 targets in a row for 5 straight games. He's become a real part of this offense, and Pittsburgh can be had over the middle of the field. So Colston Loveland over, I thought that number was a little bit too short. All right. New York Jets, Baltimore Ravens is up next. This game has sat pretty steady all week. Not a lot of movement here. Baltimore minus 13.5. Total, I guess, up a little bit this morning. A lot of the 44.5s are disappearing. We now see 45.5 at FanDuel as well. It's tough to make a case for the Jets right now, but my numbers slightly lean that way. More of a mathing and not something I'm super confident in. Between the trades and injuries, this roster is extremely thin. The Jets turn back to Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, which I actually prefer. He's far less mistake prone than Justin Fields. He gets the ball out on time, but he is walking into a brutal situation. Like, the wide receiver room is depleted. Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds are on IR. A.D. Mitchell, as much as he's a great separator, he has major drop issues right now. There really isn't a reliable second option in this offense. And defensively, this is no longer the unit that it was early in the year. Sauce Gardner gone. Michael Carter was traded. The safety group is beat up. They're relying heavily on depth corners. On the defensive line, both Will McDonald and Harrison Phillips, they should play despite being questionable, but those are still players you would want to confirm pregame as well. Baltimore, on the other hand, fairly healthy. They were decimated early in the season. They've stabilized since then. Rashad Bateman is still out with the high ankle sprain. Beyond that, though, the offense is fairly intact. On defense, they get Marlon Humphrey back, who missed last week. That's big. The only loss is a depth corner for them. So they're in a clean health spot, and probably as healthy as you could want to be at this point in an NFL season. From a matchup standpoint, Baltimore has some real edges. I mean, the Jets play a lot of man coverage. even without the personnel to play it. Baltimore, top 10 in the league against man, especially with their play action concepts. Lamar, if he ever decides to run the ball again, can beat man as well with his legs. Meanwhile, the Jets offense, they don't really get any relief like schematically in this game. This is a bottom tier passing unit, even with Tyrod Taylor. While they can run the ball efficiently, Baltimore is one of the better tackling defenses in the league now that they're at full health. They don't give up a lot of yards after contact. That's usually where the Jets find some hidden efficiency. So not in love with that. If there's one thing to watch here, I think maybe the Jets will go with some heavy personnel to try to stress Baltimore's nickel run defense. Baltimore will put out a nickel defense a lot of the times, but unless Tyrod can extend plays and hit some explosives, and this offense has shown no ability to do that, it's hard to envision them scoring consistently. So for me, no play. I would lean Jets. I mean, I see some 14 in market right now. That's probably a buy point on the Jets. As ugly as it is, I know Baltimore's clearly the better, healthier team. There's questions of whether the Jets can score enough to hang inside the number. But like, is Lamar healthy enough to be trusted to win by more than 2 TDs? I'm not necessarily sure that is the case. So, yeah, not much to do for this particular game at this point. Mike says, Loveland is steaming. Gotta love us. Yeah, listen, I mean, it's there's 700 watching in real time right now, 135 on Twitter, on X, 565 on YouTube. That's enough people that are betting it at the same time where potentially, you get some steam on Colston Loveland, but good to see it moving in our direction. Reminder, if you haven't smashed that like button down below, please smash that like button down below. All right. Giants and Lions up next. This number's gone on a ride all week. Once Jackson Dart was ruled out with a concussion and the Giants went back to Jameis Winston, the market steamrolled here. We saw Lions -10, -10.5 early in the week. That's pushed all the way out now to looks like Detroit 13, even up to 13.5 this morning as well. So it's been one way Lions money. I mean, we're seeing some 14s in market right now as well. At this point, the side is basically gone. The number, in my opinion, is too inflated to lay. My raw numbers lean slightly towards the Giants. I'm also probably not going to touch that today and get off this stream and bet that. The total was the angle I liked most earlier in the week. I used my triple hammer on the over on this show. On the over in this game on the Thursday Best Bet show. At the time, it made a ton of sense. Jameis Winston introduces volatility, explosives, turnovers in a way that Jackson Dart doesn't. But Detroit has activated both DJ Reed and Khalil Dorsey off of IR. And now this is in a range where I would say it's more of a lean than a play. I still think the game flows towards points, and we got a good number there. I just don't have the same conviction as earlier in the week. On the Detroit side, I mean, Terrion Arnold and Kirby Joseph remain out in the secondary, but with Reed and Dorsey both returning, that makes this defensive backfield much more functional than it looked midweek. The biggest long-term blow, in my opinion, for Detroit right now is Sam Laporta going on IR. That looks like it's a season-ending situation. Against the Giants specifically, though, I don't think Laporta's absence is going to cap Detroit's scoring. This offense is driven by its run game efficiency and Jared Goff's timing structure. It's not tight end volume. The matchup on the ground is where Detroit has the biggest edge. The Giants' defense is the worst run-stopping unit in football right now. They're dead last in EPA per rush allowed. They're worst in explosive rush rate allowed. I mean, they're bleeding 7.4 yards per carry on runs outside the tackles, which is insane. And that's exactly where Jahmyr Gibbs is most dangerous. Perimeter runs, misdirection. He can accelerate in the open field. When Detroit can run, they score a ton. And on paper, like, this is one of those spots. Offensively for the Giants, there isn't some catastrophic mismatch They have a decent counter game. Detroit's run defense is much softer against gap runs than inside zone. More importantly, Detroit plays a lot of man coverage. They're one of the heaviest man coverage profiles in the league. And Winston, he's far more willing than Jackson Dart to fire into these one-on-one windows, especially off play action. So that raises volatility. It's good for an over, in my opinion. The overall picture is this. Detroit is set up for chunk runs. Jameis gives the Giants a more explosive but mistake-prone passing profile. And structurally, I still think this leans towards points. The activation of Reed and Dorsey knocks the total from a full play to more of a lean, but points in this game. From a prop perspective, Darius Slayton back in the lineup for the Giants. I've played him over 2.5 receptions. Now, I'm usually weary of players returning from injury, but I think this number is just way too low. Now, granted, FanDuel price is minus 146. There's a little bit of juice on this, but pre-injury, 6 straight games where he got 4 or more targets, and that was with a quarterback that won't push it as much either. So I think Darius Slayton's numbers are a little bit too low in this game. I played him over 2.5 receptions. Okay, we'll move along through the rest of the games here shortly, but FanDuel is changing the way that you live bet football, and it starts with next drive SGPs. Now you can bet what's happening on the next drive. Will it end in a touchdown, a punt, a field goal? For those who watch our watch-alongs here on Forward Progress, we love this market. You can stack in player props as well, like rushing yards to catch a pass, which we do all the time, someone to find the end zone. You can build your bet exactly how you want it. FanDuel's enhanced quick betting experience makes it easy to find live bets fast. You can build SGPs in real time, and you see the player stats that you need. And every NFL game day comes with a profit boost you can use on your next drive SGP, so you can get more out of every single play. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download the app today and bet the next drive your way. Please play responsibly. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas and affiliation of Kansas Star Casino, 18 plus and present in DC, 19 plus and physically located in Ontario. Opt-in is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit rg-help.com. 1-888-989-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Call Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 or visit connectsontario.ca. And this is a paid endorsement. All right, let's move it along here. Chad is hopping today. Lots of comments today. If you're watching on X right now, you're totally free to watch on X. If you want to hop on over to YouTube, though, we do have a very lively chat that talks about the games here on Sunday morning. If you want to participate in that, hop on over. 665 watching on YouTube in real time right now. Take 2 seconds, smash that like button. Really good for the YouTube algorithm as I move on through the rest of the early games here. Patriots, Bengals, our next spot here. This game's taken yet another turn this morning. I'm fascinated with this game. All right. After the Burrow back and forth earlier in the week, beat writers acting like he's going to play, then the Saturday announcement that he's not. And, now we're seeing Cincinnati money show up again. Like this number pushed all the way out to Patriots -8. It started ticking back towards the Bengals. We even have some sharp shops at 7 right now. And I got to tell you, I do not agree with that move. I do not. I'm going to end up with just okay numbers in this game compared to the closing price. Nothing about this matchup makes me want to get off of New England. In fact, the 7s make me want to add more. Let's start with the Bengals offense. It's Joe Flacco again. The banged up, limited shoulder version of Joe Flacco holding his arm all week last week. Got one full practice in on Friday. He's doing it without Jamar Chase, who got suspended for the Jalen Ramsey incident. Massive loss. Cincinnati already bottom 8 in the league in separation. Chase was the one player who could consistently win a route on his own. Behind T. Higgins, this wide receiving room drops off a cliff. And now they face a Patriots defense that is top 8 in the league at limiting separation, and that includes games where Christian Gonzalez missed earlier in the year. You're essentially asking Flacco to throw into NFL tight windows with no mobility, a beat-up throwing arm, and without his number one wide receiver. That, to me, is a very tough sell. But that's not even the biggest issue. The bigger issue, and why I don't understand the Cincinnati buy, is the Bengals defense. It's a bottom 5 unit in pretty much every meaningful category, and the injuries have completely nuked them even further. Trey Hendrickson is out. That eliminates their only consistent pass rush threat that they've had all year. Cam Sample is out. Not a great player, but they're so thin defensively that it matters. Logan Wilson has been traded to the Cowboys. Cam Taylor-Britt is out at corner. Like, this depth chart is stretching at every level. They don't have the scheme to hide it. They're bottom 5 in pass EPA allowed, bottom 5 against motion. They don't have some magical coverage shell that they can pivot into. Like, everything is bad. And that's the wrong profile to take into a matchup with this Patriots offense. Top 5 EPA per dropback. Drake May playing extremely well. The passing game has shredded every coverage that they faced. Even the run game, which is like the only inconsistent part of their offense, they get a gift here too, because Cincinnati's second last in the league in EPA per rush allowed. So New England's basically getting to choose how they want to attack. Yes, their defense does take a short-term hit. They lost Milton Williams on the interior. That's a loss. But the rest of the roster is in good shape. When you zoom out on this game, nothing about the matchup has changed. Cincy is missing their best offensive player. They're missing their best defensive player. They're playing a backup quarterback who isn't fully healthy. And they're fielding one of the league's worst defenses that we've seen in the last decade. I get that Cincinnati took some money this morning, and you always have to respect that someone with a lot of money that wins bet them. And I get that. Like, this is influential money to move a market like this. But from a matchup standpoint, I don't agree. I think this number is way short. For me, Patriots. Prop play that I liked for this game. I played Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, over 1.5 receptions. Listen, minus 140 at FanDuel. There's some better prices out there for grading purposes of this show. We'll track minus 140. I would say don't let the snap count deter you on Pop Douglas. He's regularly playing like 15 to 20 snaps, which isn't a lot, but there's so many design plays for him. If you watch the Patriots offense, there are a lot of design plays to get the ball into his hands in space. So I think 1.5 receptions is low in this game, even with the possibility of a blowout in this one. All right, Seahawks Titans up next. This number finally moved a bit last night in one direction or the other. Tennessee took money again. Sharpbooks moved off of the 13, as did FanDuel last night. And honestly, it's kind of becoming like a weekly comedy routine. The Titans get bet every week on the weekend. And yes, they cover sometimes, but it always requires like some sort of miracle finish. Like, same thing as New England Cincy. I respect the groups that hit it, but based off the matchup, I just don't see what they're seeing. For me, Seattle or nothing. You start with the Seahawks. They are quietly dealing with some injury attrition. This is like the one hesitation in laying a big road number. Kenneth Walker popped up late in the week with a glute injury. Friday, soft tissue issue is never great. So we'll see how much work he actually gets. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. On the offensive line, they're banged up inside. Rookie Gray Zabel left last week with a knee injury. If he plays, he's playing hurt. They're down their starting center. This is not ideal against Jeffrey Simmons on the other side. He's the one Titan who can single-handedly ruin interior protection. Defensively, Seattle's also thinner than most people realize. I mean, Ernest Jones went from full practice to limited to DNP, generally a bad trend towards him playing. Tyrese Knight is out with a concussion. The linebackers are stretched, but this matchup probably doesn't expose it because Tennessee has no functional passing game left. And that's really the core of this handicap. The Titans offense is completely depleted. Calvin Ridley's on IR with the broken leg. Alec Iomanner, their number 2, is out with a bad hamstring. So what's left is a receiving group that is essentially all depth players going up against one of the best corner groups in the league. Tennessee already ranks bottom 5 in pass EPA, bottom 2 in rush EPA. Their run game has nothing. Now they face the number 1 run defense in EPA allowed, a unit that can stop the run from light boxes. There's just nowhere for this offense to move the ball. Defensively, Tennessee's a skeleton crew. L'Jarius Sneed's still on IR. They traded away Jarvis Brownlee and Roger McCreary this year. Xavier Woods still out at safety. It's one of the thinnest secondaries in football. They play a heavy 2-high structure, which kind of aligns with Seattle's strengths. Sam Darnold's been very good versus 2-high looks this season. They've generated a lot of explosives against those types of shells. So, I mean, listen, the Titans always get respected money, but given their injuries, their lack of receivers, the non-existent running game, how elite Seattle's defense is, I can only lean one way, Seahawks or nothing. Cottage in the chat says, Rob should give out Pollard over receptions again. It has to be good. I try not to give out multi on a game. I do like that. It's just a small edge for me this week. The prop I like the most is Chimere DK under 36.5 receiving yards. I know he's their de facto number 1 now. Separation numbers have been very bad against good defenses. I'm taking DK under 36.5 receiving yards, minus 112 at FanDuel. Vikings, Packers at Lambeau Field. I see people asking about anytime touchdowns. We did get a donation as well from Kilkenny. I'll get to all the touchdown stuff right at the end of the show. Appreciate everyone who's, has those thoughts, but we'll wait till the end to parse all that. Vikings, Packers. This number's kind of been glued in place all week. Just looking at the odds screen right now. Packers sitting 6 to 6.5, total 41.5. The market hasn't really wanted to budge on this game. From a numbers perspective, I'm opposite most of my forward progress colleagues here. My lean is actually Minnesota and the under in this game, whereas I think a lot of the guys in our group like Green Bay. But this is a tough game to truly love either side on, because of how limited the Vikings are offensively and how beat up Green Bay is at the skill positions. So I'll start with Minnesota. They've actually been one of the healthier teams in the league the past few weeks. That's going to continue again here. The big piece to track today, which Ekshesh has brought it up in the chat, Jonathan Greenard, he missed last week with a shoulder injury. DNP limited in practice this week. Let's wait for a status update on him. If he plays, that is a big lift to the pass rush. Their center, Ryan Kelly, has been activated. He is cleared for game action. So the Vikings now have their full starting goal line. The problem is JJ McCarthy. Okay. Very limited sample, but so far he's been bad. Bottom 3 EPA per play, bottom 3 EPA per dropback, high negative play rate, inaccurate, struggling against pressure. They're not doing anything well through the air. The one small offensive edge they have is inside running. Minnesota's top 10 in inside run EPA. Green Bay, 25th in inside run EPA allowed. That's about it. Everything else is below average. Green Bay, meanwhile, getting crushed by injuries at the skill positions. Tucker Kraft IR. Jaden Reed is back at practice, not ready to play. Matthew Golden not playing. Dontavian Wicks and Savion Williams are banged up. Josh Jacobs probably not going to go today. I think he's officially been ruled out. Yeah, people in the chat are letting me know Jacobs is out and Greenard is inactive. So it's basically Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and a bunch of question marks right now. Defensively, there's some good news. Lucas Van Ness returned to practice. That's one to monitor. They've really, really missed his presence, but they lose linebacker Quay Walker. Nate Hobbs is still out at corner. Structurally, Minnesota's defense under Flores is the wild card here. Nobody blitzes more than the Vikings, 47% of dropbacks. That's usually the quickest path to disrupting Jordan Love. The Packers ranked 22nd in EPA when pressured. Minnesota, very good at converting pressure into negative plays. Tough one. Green Bay does have one directional edge, though. They're very good against too high coverages. Minnesota plays a ton of too high. That's how Green Bay scores. Explosives, immediate shots off play action. But the lack of healthy receivers, it just caps the ceiling on this offense. So all that leads me to the same conclusion. Minnesota or nothing. I personally like the under a little bit in this game. You've got an injured Packers offense, a Vikings offense that hasn't shown it can function. That's where I'm at on this game. All right. From a prop perspective, I like Aaron Jones over 52.5 rush yards, minus 112. Back-to-back weeks with at least a 67% snap share for the Vikings. I like a lot of their inside run concepts against Green Bay. And honestly, they're going out on the road at Lambeau. I do think with the way McCarthy's been struggling, establish the run might be the way that they go here. So I played Aaron Jones over on rush yards. Appreciate everyone in the chat with the updates on the injuries in that game. So Van Ness is in, Wicks is in, Golden out, Jacobs out, and Greenard out. Glad we got through all of that. Colts at Chiefs, our final game in the early window here. This game took an interesting turn this morning because Kansas City got bet to 3.5 across the board and even to 4 at a sharp book right now. And that's, again, not a move that you can just shrug off. These are markets with 75K limits, 100K limits. So you have to respect that someone with influence likes the Chiefs here. That said, based on matchup and current form, I still lean Colts plus the points, and I lean a little bit towards the under as well. Starting on the Indy side, the biggest concern is Daniel Jones, who popped up midweek with the calf issue on the injury report. He has no injury designation. He's going to play, but that note isn't nothing. That's something I always keep an eye on. The silver lining is that the Colts really don't need him, in my opinion, to be super dynamic to compete because they can lean heavily into their run game and play action, which is where all the matchup advantages lie in this game. Indy is the number one rushing team in the league by EPA. They're efficient on inside zone. They're efficient on outside zone. They're efficient on gap concepts. Jonathan Taylor's top 5 in the league in success rate, top 5 in explosive rate. That is extremely rare. And Kansas City's run defense, bottom 6 EPA allowed. They're below average in both line yards and yards after contact. They struggle badly against 11 personnel runs, which is a core part of Indy's identity. Where I think Indy can really control the flow is with the run and play action. They run it more than any team in football. And Kansas City, dead last in EPA allowed versus play action this year. Jones loves throwing off of those looks. Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, these guys all grade extremely well on play action targets. If Indy can stay out of those long down and drive distances, they can put Kansas City's linebackers in conflict and they can sustain drives. Defensively, the Colts are also healthier than they've been in weeks. DeForest Buckner's still out, which is a big blow. But they add Samson Ebukam, Tyquan Lewis back into the rotation up front. More importantly, they get Trevarius Ward back from IR. They now have a corner trio of Trevarius Ward, Sauce Gardner, and Kenny Moore. With Sauce active last week, Indy doubled their man coverage rate. That's something that they now have the bodies to do. And that matters a lot because Mahomes and this Chiefs offense have been far less explosive this year. Last week, he struggled on deep balls again, 3 for 12 with a pick. Kansas City ranks near the bottom of the league in explosive play rate. They're still efficient, but this version of the offense, it basically forces long drives. They can't pick up explosives on the ground. Defenses continue to play them deep to short. Indy, top 10 in pass EPA. They generate pressure without having to blitz a lot. They limit explosives extremely well. This feels like a classic make Mahomes earn every yard type of matchup. That's the exact formula that has historically worked against KC. It's the same formula that the Colts defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, has used against the Chiefs when he was with the Bengals in the past. So while I understand the market move here, I could see that Chiefs 3 could be a buy point for some people. You can never also like ignore influential money at these limits. I still disagree with it from a matchup standpoint. For me, it's Colts plus the points and the under in this game. From a prop perspective, I'm going to pass on. I'm not going to give out a prop for this game. There was one that I liked, but it's actually moved significantly since I started the show, and I'm not going to go there. So nothing for props for this game. Marcel earlier said DK is 34.5 on FanDuel right now. I try to check these in real time. I will grade at 34.5 for DK from the Titans. All right, before we get to the late window here, quick heads up. Thanksgiving week this week for all the Americans. Us Canadians already had it. I'm probably going to celebrate another Thanksgiving this week, though. It's what I do. Means our schedule is a little bit different here on Forward Progress. We're still pumping out shows, just at different times. So you don't want to miss them. Tuesday, we got Best Bets, 5 p.m. Eastern time. This is only going to be one Best Bet show this week. It's going to be me, G-Stack George, and Suuma. Tuesday, 5 p.m. Wednesday, we are doing a Thanksgiving extravaganza, 5 p.m. Eastern time. That's me, G-Stack, and Austin Mock. Plus, we're bringing in some guests. We're only going to look at the Thanksgiving games plus the Black Friday game. 4 in total, sides, totals, props, all that stuff. Thursday, watch along per usual. It's going to be the night game, Ravens, Bengals. That's G-Stack, Alex Moretto, Hitman, bunch of guests. Friday, another watch along. Earlier this time, 2:45 Eastern, we're going live for Eagles, Bears, Black Friday. Myself, G-Stack, George, both in studio with guests. All of this presented by FanDuel. Set notifications here on the channel. Hang out with us all this week. Hopefully you have a very happy Thanksgiving, but just please pay attention to the schedule changes for just this week only, and then we're back on track for the normal schedule the following week. All right, late window here. Jaguars and Cardinals are first game here. So just taking a look at the market. Arizona took money last night. Every +3 is now gone in market. FanDuel's actually moved out to 1.5 in this game. And honestly, yeah, I get it. I don't have much faith in Jacksonville either. But this is a game where I cannot bet anything until we see the inactives in this game, which happened 90 minutes before kickoff. Arizona just has way too many moving pieces right now, especially in the secondary. And depending on who's in or out, there are scenarios where I'd actually prefer Jacksonville, maybe the over at this price. Let's start with the Jags. They're simply not healthy enough to justify like clicking them without hesitation at this point. Offensively, it's a mess, right? Brian Thomas Jr. is out again. Hunter Long is out again. Now, Brenton Strange is returning off of IR. So that's big for them. But right tackle, Anton Harrison still out. That's a big deal for an offense that's already bottom 10 in pass EPA. Schematically, this matchup is not forgiving for them. Jacksonville's been very, very limited against zone coverage all year. Bottom third in yards per dropback against zone. Arizona is a zone defense. They run zone at one of the highest rates in the entire league. I don't love that for them. Where Jacksonville can still function here is on the ground. The run game is legit. It's top 8 in EPA. Arizona's run defense has multiple leaks. They get blown off the line of scrimmage. They have issues at the second level. They have one of the worst tackling profiles in all of football. So Jacksonville can probably run it. But the problem is that the Jags just don't have like an explosive ceiling right now to separate. They can run it. I know they blew out the Chargers, but can they create margin without, that ceiling? I don't know. Arizona, they're also dealing with like a fair share of issues. Marvin Harrison Jr. is out again after the appendix surgery. Trey Benson not ready to come back. The right tackle, Jonah Williams, goes on IR. They have Will Hernandez and Kelvin Beachum very, very banged up as O-linemen, even if they do end up playing. defensively. Baron Browning is still out. Mac Wilson is on IR. The secondary is completely in flux. That's why I can't fire on Arizona unless I know whether Will Johnson and Garrett Williams are active, because it changes everything for this game. Despite all that, though, Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he's been solid since taking over. He only really had one bad game on paper, had a couple fluky pick sixes. He's kept the offense on schedule. Good matchup advantage here. Jacksonville is a pass funnel. Opponents throw at a very high rate against them, and they're 25th in passing success rate. Brissett, short to intermediate, spreads the ball out. Let Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch win underneath. They can rack up yards after catch. That's kind of the way to beat Jacksonville. But defensively, just too depleted right now. So this is like an availability handicap for me. If both Cardinals corners play, I think Arizona is good look, especially on the money line here. If one or both are out, I probably prefer the over in this game. But too many unknowns. This is a game where I'm just waiting. Cleveland, Las Vegas, up next. This game took some real, I call it big boy money on Saturday night, because most of the plus fours on Cleveland disappeared instantly. A lot of the 3.5s disappeared. There's still a few out there as well. Honestly, I get it. You can definitely make an argument for the Browns. I still don't have a real opinion on this game. I don't want to pretend like I know how to price something like this, because I don't. Projecting a first-time NFL starter with basically no supporting cast, it's not my specialty. But at the same time, I completely understand why people push back against Las Vegas laying 4 points. Shedeur Sanders gets the start. We're dealing with a completely unknown NFL sample. He looked awful last week, but he's a good college quarterback. His biggest weakness was sack avoidance. That tends to be the toughest thing for a young quarterback to fix quickly. And now he's walking into an offense that, I mean, frankly, just doesn't have a lot of playmakers. They lose Jamari Thrash, which, I mean, I'm only mentioning that because the receiving core is already one of the worst groups in the league. So this is a tough setup for any rookie. The schematic matchup doesn't help them much either. Vegas plays heavy zone coverage. Browns receivers have struggled to find openings in a lot of zones this year. They haven't had a quarterback who's been able to beat zone this year. Maybe Sanders changes things. I'm not sure. On the ground, they're closer to league average. They've been better running the ball as the year's gone on, but the Raiders' run defense has been pretty solid this season. They're strong in line yards. They're strong in EPA. They're good at tackling. There's no easy bailout plan for Cleveland if Sanders struggles. On the other side, Las Vegas, healthy everywhere except the one area where they can't really afford any attrition, which is the offensive line. Colton Miller's on IR. Jackson Powers-Johnson is on IR. This line was already bad. Now it's bottom tier, heading into a matchup against one of the best defensive fronts in football. The Browns lead the league in pressure rate with just 4 rushers. The Myles Garrett effect makes everyone else's job easier. It's just one-on-ones across the board. And Vegas is bottom 5 in pass EPA, bottom 2 in run EPA. So they're not bringing much firepower into this either. It's a tough game. I've plug and played with like different historically bad quarterbacks in place of Shedeur Sanders, trying to figure out what I think the accurate price is in this game. I just don't really know. So for me, it's a pure pass. I don't have a strong opinion. I completely see why Cleveland took money. That one is not puzzling to me. I'm not sure the Raiders should be laying 4 to anyone. But with a rookie quarterback, bottom tier receiving core, I'm also not like running to play the Browns. It's volatility all around, and I'm staying away. In fact, even though this game is a low total at 36, I actually think it has like way more volatility than people realize, where alts are definitely in play. No one knows what Shedeur Sanders is going to be in this game. Atlanta, New Orleans up next. This line made a big move early in the week. Once we learned that Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London would both miss the game for Atlanta, the Saints flipped from small dogs to small favorites. They've settled in now around -1.5, -2, I don't think that there's much value left either way at this point. If we start with Atlanta, it's a completely different offense without Drake London. He's one of the most valuable receivers in football. He's third in yards per route run. He has a 33% target share. He has single-handedly kept them competitive in games against the Colts and the Patriots. The problem is that there's nothing behind him. Darnell Mooney is one of the least effective receivers in the league right now. No other Atlanta receiver is any good. You now have Casey Washington, Kateril Hodge. These guys are stepping into full-time roles. And throwing them the ball is Kirk Cousins, who has been horrendous since the Achilles injury. Like really bad. Clive TA went back and did the work. He's dead last in EPA per dropback amongst quarterbacks with 150 or more attempts dating back to week 11 of last season. Dead last. Up front, the Falcons are beat up too. Both guards, Bergeron, Lindstrom, they're probably going to play, but they've been fighting injuries for weeks now. On defense, it's more of the same. Leonard Floyd, likely out again. Zach Harrison put on IR. Sam Roberts is on IR. They do get a big boost, though, getting Divine Diablo back at linebacker. He is a really good linebacker, but this front is thin. And if you watch Falcons games, it does show up on tape right now. New Orleans comes off a bye. They're noticeably healthier. The big one to track this morning is right tackle Tylese Fuaga. He missed week 10 with an ankle injury. He got limited practices in following the bye. He's trending towards playing. It's important because they're already down their center for the year, so they need Fuaga in there. But overall, the Saints are in much better shape than the Falcons physically. And structurally, I think this matchup leans their way as well. Their secondary is very good at limiting separation. They're top 8 in the league at limiting separation, while Atlanta's pass catchers, without Drake London, this is like bottom of the barrel separators here. So if you take an offense that already can't separate, you pair it with a quarterback who hasn't played well in 2 years, and now you let the Saints load the box and they dare Kirk Cousins to win the game. I mean, that to me is a tough formula. The one thing Atlanta can still do is break tackles in the running game. They're very strong after contact. The Saints are one of the worst tackling defenses in the league. That's their one real path offensively. But if New Orleans can even force some third and longs here, Atlanta does not have the receivers or quarterback play to keep up. On the other side, Tyler Shuck, he's actually held his own for the Saints. 2 very tough road starts, one against the Rams off a bye, one against, I think, an underrated Carolina defense. He's produced 2 decent games. He's taken care of the ball. He's avoided negative plays. He's going to face some pressure in this game, but the Saints offense doesn't need him to be a hero. So at the current number, I slightly prefer New Orleans, but a lot of this has been fully baked into the price now. So it's not a bet for me at this stage, but I would only lay it with New Orleans in this game. All right. Eagles-Cowboys. Final game in the late window. This is one of the more fascinating matchups of the week. Honestly, I really like the Cowboys in this spot. I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. You see the Cowboys logo behind me. I like to think I'm pretty impartial when it comes to this stuff. I've bet against them many times. It's also tough to sit here now and tell people, go bet +3 when +3.5 was available for a good chunk of the week. But from a numbers perspective, I still think the market hasn't properly adjusted to the improvements that the Cowboys have made defensively. Let's start with Philadelphia. Lane Johnson being ruled out is very big. It's one of the best right tackles in football over a long period of time. The Eagles offense simply has not been the same without him. Very big on-off splits. The good news, Cam Jurgens, their center, cleared his concussion protocol. He's going to play, but this is still a meaningful downgrade at the edge. And it comes at a bad time against a Dallas front that suddenly has some life. Aside from that one injury, the Eagles are relatively healthy right now, but the offense is it's been flat. They scored 26 points in 2 games off their bye. They sit 23rd in explosive play rate. They have elite talent, but they're just completely out of rhythm. And they've struggled so badly this year against zone coverage. All these teams are playing zone against them because Jalen Hurts just won't throw into these tight windows. And that's exactly what Dallas does structurally as a defense. That's the story of this matchup. Dallas's defensive structure fits almost perfectly against what the Eagles don't handle well. They play heavy zone. They disguise it well. They did a really good job of that in the first game of the year on Thursday Night Football. I just don't love the matchup for the Eagles offense. On the other side, I'm going to say Dallas's offense gets a nice matchup. Don't get me wrong. The Eagles defense is elite. Really, really good. But from a pure schematics perspective, Philly is a heavy man, single high defense. The Cowboys are very good against both of those looks. Yes, the Eagles have improved a lot. They added Jalen Phillips, Nolan Smith back. They stabilized the back end. Quinyon Mitchell's having a great year. They've put together very good back-to-back showings against Green Bay and Detroit. But there's opportunity there for Dallas. They're getting contributions all around right now. Quinnen Williams was big for them in just getting another interior presence. Overshown back, Malik Hooker back, Donovan Wilson back. This defense finally looks competitive. And even though the Cowboys receivers don't separate well, Dak has been dealing in tight windows all year. He handles these types of coverage structures very well. So at 3, it's not a dream entry point anymore, but directionally, I still prefer Dallas. Their defense is better than people realize. At least I think it is. Their scheme matches up well on both sides of the ball. Lane Johnson absence is massive. From a prop perspective, I like to look to the Dallas tight end in this game. Jake Ferguson hasn't had a big game in a while. Structurally, I like the opportunity for him over the middle of the field. So I played Jake Ferguson over 4.5 receptions at plus 104 in this game. Good point from Zach Sancho. Listen, I would have said this had I not seen the Raiders game as well. Like, this was the same handicap before the Raiders game. I'm not putting too much stock into how they looked against the Raiders. I'm just putting stock into the fact that they're healthy and their personnel is a lot better. All right. Kenneth Walker and Gray Zabel in for Seattle. Those are both kind of like game time decisions. Good to note that there. Now, before we get into tonight's Bucs-Rams matchup, quick reminder, right after Sunday Night Football wraps up, we're live with Sunday Reset over here on Forward Progress. It's myself. It's Clive Bixby. We go through the entire day that was, what mattered, what didn't, injuries, what box scores were misleading, all of it. Then we look ahead to next week's slate, and we try to identify any early value on the board. We've built a really strong track record doing this over the years. Not something I typically brag about, because you should be able to find good bets on a Sunday night market. But I honestly think it's the most valuable show we do here at Forward Progress. It's reactionary. It's first impressions mixed with data. If you haven't tuned in before, check it out tonight, right after Sunday Night Football on Forward Progress. You can set notifications. You'll get alerted immediately when we go live. Looking at the lines we locked in together last week, like some really good line movement on a bunch of these games. Had the Saints plus 2.5, Pittsburgh, Chicago over 44.5, Giants, Detroit over 48.5. So a lot of stuff there. Make sure that you are checking out Sunday Reset tonight after Sunday Night Football. All right. Sunday Night Football it is. Market has settled at Rams -7, total around 49.5. Honestly, I think the Rams should be a bigger favorite here. I think this matchup tilts heavily towards Los Angeles, and Tampa comes in beat up in the wrong places. So for the Bucs, injuries have kind of been a problem for them for a while now. Bucky Irving out again, hasn't played since week 5. He'll be back next week. Chris Godwin looks like he's going to return tonight. He looked like a shell of his former self early in the season. There's no indication he's just going to finally be healthy. On the defensive side, Hassan Reddick out yet again, removes one of their few consistent edge threats. But the real issue is the secondary. Jamel Dean, one of the best corners in the league, is out with a hip injury. And Benjamin Morrison popped up as a late week DNP with a hamstring injury. That puts Tampa in a potential situation where they're missing 2 outside corners against the wrong opponent. The Rams have 0 issues attacking weakened secondaries. This is what they do. Now, the Rams have some injuries of their own, but they're manageable. Tyler Higbee goes on IR. They're deep at tight end. I mean, not a huge loss. The bigger loss is their slot corner, Quentin Lake. He's been good for them. but the Rams have depth on defense, and Tampa isn't really built to punish that kind of injury. Matchup-wise, I just think the Rams offense is going to thrive here. They already have the number one pass EPA offense in the league. Tampa's defense is just slightly below average against the pass. They're elite against the run, but to me, that's not even relevant because LA doesn't need to run the ball. They're perfectly comfortable throwing the ball 40, 45 times, spreading out a defense, taking advantage of any weakness that they have in coverage. And with those Tampa cornerback injuries, the Rams are going to have very favorable matchups across the board. So between the injury situation, the schematic matchups, the fact that the Bucs had a bunch of players pop up on the injury report on Wednesday with illness and potentially some flu going around the locker room, I think LA has to be larger than a 7-point favorite in this game. So Rams for me. And I did a double take on the Matt Stafford passing yards prop, 256.5 FanDuel right now. That's a high yardage number. I still don't think it's nearly high enough. I'm going to be really surprised if the Rams come out in this game and they're not throwing the ball aggressively on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. All right. I see MMA fan in the chat. Some harsh words for Hitman. I'll say this is just like someone who's worked alongside Hitman for years. If there's someone who's absolutely not a fraud, it's definitely Hitman. I mean, he is a serious bettor. That's all the opinions he gives out. Yes, he does have a service. You can hold that against him. But we've had him on the channel for years. And for those who watch the fourth quarters of our live watch-alongs, you would probably attest to the fact that Hitman is probably one of the best in the game when it comes to player props. So appreciate the comments, MMA fan, because that helps us in the algorithm. So you can just spout off on Hitman all day long if you want to in there. But Hitman is goated in the props world, as the kids would say. Panthers 49ers, Monday Night Football. We've seen a little 49ers money enter the market over the weekend. It's pushed out to 7.5, some expensive 7s. The total has been nudged up as well. Some 50s are starting to appear. For me, the lean is Carolina and the over. At the current market prices, the Panthers are the side I prefer. Let's start with Carolina. The big concern is on the defensive side of the ball. Both inside linebackers, Trayvon Wallace, Christian Roseboom, are going to miss this game. And that's a very tough blow against a Shanahan offense that loves to put linebackers in conflict with motion, play action, all this intermediate middle of the field stuff. That matters, right? But for San Fran, the defensive front seven that was already like bottom tier continues to get thinner. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Mikael Williams, Yetur Gross-Matos, all the big names on IR. Now you add Robert Beal out with a concussion. Linebacker Tatum Bethune, who took over for Fred Warner, is out with an ankle injury. They're almost completely out of bodies in the front seven. They're last in the league in pressure rate. This is by far the softest version of the 49ers front we've seen in years. And that's why I think Carolina can hang around. The Panthers have been very good on the ground. They're top 10 in EPA per rush. San Fran's run defense is trending downwards. They don't have the playmakers they normally rely on. They play out of a lot of light boxes, and they aren't able to really generate any penetration in doing so. So if Carolina gets heavy and forces the Niners to put more bodies inside, they can move the ball and stay ahead of the sticks. Yes, I know. Listen, Bryce Young has struggled. There's been times where you look at him, you're like, this guy's not an NFL quarterback. And I do think San Fran should absolutely be able to score in this game. I just do not trust this defense whatsoever to lay these types of prices. I really don't. I think Carolina trades enough punches to stay inside this number. So lean Panthers, lean over in this game. All right. That was a number of things. Really quick review of the board in no particular order. Minnesota, Green Bay leans to Minnesota in the under. Indy, KC, looks like that 4 is now gone in market. Still like the Colts, lean to the under as well. New England, Cincy, I've said my piece on the Patriots. I make that number almost 10. I am way off market there. Pittsburgh, Chicago, don't mind those Pittsburgh plus 3s, minus 115 out there. Jets, Baltimore, nothing there. Giants, Detroit, nothing really, just a small lean to the over at this point. Seattle, Tennessee, lean Seattle. Jacksonville, Arizona, can't do anything with that game until we see the inactives later. Cleveland, Las Vegas, nothing. Philly, Dallas. I like Dallas in that game. Atlanta, New Orleans, nothing to add. Tampa, Rams. I think the Rams are a little bit short. Leans Carolina and the over on Monday Night Football. Okay. Kilkenny, thank you very much for the $20 donation. Goes a long way. Anything to reinvest back into the company. Sup King, thoughts on any Tyquan Thornton TD? I know Worthy is playing. A Restrepo TD plus 2,200. Tyler Shuck over everything. Okay, I like Tyler Shuck a lot. Probably more than the market does. I think he is better than Spencer Rattler. Looks good. Don't mind Tyler Shuck alts whatsoever in that game. Let me just quickly take a look at the Tyquan Thornton price as it stands right now, because a lot of this stuff does end up moving. And if I was going to take a Chiefs receiver to score a touchdown, it would definitely be someone that is not going to draw, really tight man coverage like Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy. Okay, so FanDuel has 9-1 on Tyquan Thornton. My fair is plus 843. So I guess plus EV slightly on Tyquan Thornton. Small agreement for me on that one. All right. My own, I'm going to give out 3 for today. Kind of a long shot, medium shot. We're going 3. Let's start with Atlanta and New Orleans. And I might pivot here. I have 2 that I'm thinking about for Atlanta and New Orleans. All right, let's start Atlanta and New Orleans. I will say, again, I'm completely transparent with the audience at all times. There's better prices out there than FanDuel. I will track at the FanDuel price of plus 750 on Kaderil Hodge, but there is 9-1 in market on Kaderil Hodge. I much prefer that. My fair value is somewhere in the plus 650 range. So it's been bet down a little bit. Nothing crazy. Still think it's plus EV. They just don't have very many options. And Kaderil Hodge is the guy that I think is going to benefit the most today. So Atlanta Falcons, Kaderil Hodge, plus 750 is one official play. Next, we're going Chicago and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh and Chicago, if you want to load that one up. This one you're going to play at FanDuel because they do have the best price in market. And that is going to be Roman Wilson at plus 650. This is one of my favorite ones of the day. Roman Wilson's snap share has just been, increasing and increasing and increasing. And not getting a lot of targets, but he is on the field a lot. And he's especially on the field when they're in the red zone as well. So at plus 650, I think that's a really good look. My fair on him is plus 487 for reference, if you are betting that elsewhere. And finally, we are going to end with the Patriots and the Bengals. Patriots, Bengals, if you want to load that one up. Kayshon Boutte is back in the mix. He is plus 330 at FanDuel. The best I see in the market is plus 375. As long as your odds start with a 3 in front of Kayshon Boutte, I think he is a pretty solid bet in that range against a Cincy pass defense that really can't defend anything. So Kayshon Boutte plus 330 going to be the final one. Kaderil Hodge, Roman Wilson, Kayshon Boutte are the 3 options for today's pizza buffet. Hopefully we can hit another one this week. That would be nice if we can get that done. That's a wrap for Week 12's Pizza Buffet. Went a little bit long today. Huge thanks to everyone who tuned in and jumped into the chat. Always appreciate you spending part of your Sunday with me. If you enjoyed the show or you got any value out of it, hit the like button. Consider sharing it. Man, consider sharing it around. Word of mouth really helps us grow, honestly, more than anything else. So if you do like the show, tell your friends about it. Let people know that it exists. Shout out to our presenting sponsor, FanDuel. Big thank you to our producer, Barbara Alberts, for keeping everything running smoothly every single week here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Good luck with your bets. I'll see you back here tonight on Forward Progress for the Sunday reset right after Sunday Night Football. Peace out, everyone. Have a good one.